part of your day each and every day. Now, here is how you guys can be a part of the show. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. And the MadWorldAttractions.com text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Coming up on the show today, the director of broadcasting at Clemson, Don Munson, is set to join us in the next segment. What do you want to know from the director of broadcasting at Clemson? As classy as he is, always tells us, I'm not the voice of Clemson, Mark. That was the late, great Jim Phillips. He will always be the voice of Clemson. However, I am the director of broadcasting at Clemson. Don Munson joins us at 3:20 p.m. At 3:40 p.m., our Clemson midseason report card. Frank Reich, unbeknownst to him, in some questioning, shed some light on what it's really like to work with David Tepper. You know, when you only see him forward-facing and out there in public and visible, seems like an affable guy. But there is some sound from Frank Reich, okay, that paints the picture of what it's really like. I'm not going to come out and say it's awful, it's a disaster. I'm not going to come out and say that. I'm going to let you guys make your own determinations. That's coming up at 4 o'clock p.m. today. We've got Jake Crane coming up at 4:20. We ask you, what sport has the best postseason? We've got the top 5 at 5. We've got the North Carolina and South Carolina top 10 today. And we have you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere in existence. But, my friends, we, of course, want to open with this. It's not often that we on this show open with baseball, right? We live in a college football world, and I am a college football girl. It's not often that we open with baseball, okay? But last night, Braves Phillies took the stage. And I'm not sure how many of you guys realize this, okay? I'm not sure how many of you do, but there was a point last night where there was exactly a 91.6% chance that Philadelphia was going to win. It was midway through the 5th inning, and Philadelphia led 4-0. And I was starting to see excuses on Twitter like, oh, the Braves' bats have just gone cold. They've just gone cold. What can you do about it? The Braves' bats have just gone cold. You know, what can you possibly do? What can you possibly say? There's nothing any of us can do. And that burns my brownies because it gives no credit to the other team, right? Like, that's where we are as a society. When our team loses a game, it's that, man, our team just didn't show up today. Huh. Funny, it's amazing how Ohio State never shows up against Michigan then. Are we going to show up in the biggest game of the year? No, that Philadelphia was just mowing the Braves down. But an offense that averaged a somewhat historic 5.85 runs a game was not going to be shut out, was not going to be stopped for long. The Braves chipped away, getting 1 run on an Ozzie Albies single to bring home Ronald Acuna Jr. Then, in the bottom of the 7th inning, Travis d'Arnaud, who was only even playing because Snitker made a brilliant managerial move to pull out the struggling Sean Murphy, give us a little bit better bat. We need that bat in the lineup for this game, a must-win game. And Travis d'Arnaud took you from not really in the game to very much in the game with this.
Strikeouts. That ball's hit well. d'Arnaud, deep left. Goodbye! 2-run home run. It's a 1-run game.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
And that's how you felt after that. You felt that way. It went from 91.6% chance the Braves were going to lose to, oh my gosh, down by a run, couple innings to go, few innings to go. We can do this. Here they come. The bats are coming back to life. Oh my goodness gracious, right? Starter Zach Wheeler left in a little bit too long, maybe. But darn, was he not effective early in that game. He was massively effective. And, you can tell me what the records say, right? You can tell me that, the combined records of the Arizona Diamondbacks against the LA Dodgers, Diamondbacks lead that series 2-0. The combined records there are every bit as good as Braves-Phillies, but Braves-Phillies feels big, doesn't it? Like Arizona, Los Angeles, doesn't feel big. Braves-Phillies feels massive, especially when you consider the fact that this series, it basically gives you the entire East Coast. It gives you the whole East Coast. The Braves have the United States of America south of Virginia, okay? I mean, they have the United States of America. They have the East Coast. Favorite team in Florida, Atlanta Braves. Favorite team in Georgia, Atlanta Braves. South Carolina, North Carolina, Atlanta Braves, right? Then the Phillies give you north of that because the Mets suck, the Yankees suck, the Orioles are there on the American League side, but from a National League standpoint, you've got the entire East Coast. Arizona against Los Angeles, you have the desert. Congratulations. This feels massive. And it is awesome to see. Then, bottom of the 8th inning, relievers now in for Philadelphia. The score is now 4-3. That was step one of a 3-step play, 3-course meal. That was just unbelievable to witness. Austin Riley, 3-2, 2 outs, 2 strikes, bottom of the 8th. What do you got for me, Austin?
3-2. Here he comes. Riley in the air to left field. On the run, Marsh. There it goes. Austin Riley has given the Braves the lead in the 8th. As clutch as it gets. Oh, wow.
He did it again. Oops, I did it again. He did it again. Crazy. He did it again. Austin Riley, 5-4. But, my friends, not to be outdone, Bryce Harper is on first base. There is 1 out in the 9th inning, and Castellanos is at the plate. And I'm going to tell you what, off the bat, I thought this was big problems for Atlanta until Michael Harris Jr. had other ideas.
He deals a 2-2. Castellanos in the air to right center field. Harris is on the run. Harris at the track. He leaps and he makes the catch. Harper might be doubled up. The throw gets away. The throw to first. It's over. It's over.
That damn near felt like they won the World Series last night, didn't it? I mean, it damn near felt like that. It's crazy to consider how odds shift, right? Because if the Braves lose that game, I looked this up today, and the feeling was, the number said there was about an 88% chance the Braves lose the series. 88% if they lose that game last night. Okay? So like 1 out of 10 times the Braves would win the series if they lose that game last night. Now that the Braves won that game, what are the odds the Braves win the series? 70%. And it all shifted with that hit from Austin Riley and that double play from Michael Harris Jr. A double play, mind you, that Nelson Cruz had essentially the same play to make in the 2011 World Series. It was the St. Louis Cardinals. It was the Texas Rangers. The Rangers were up by 2 runs. And there was the 9th inning, 2 outs, 2 strikes. And David Freese, with 2 guys on, lines a ball to right field. And Nelson Cruz decided not to give up his body. Got scared that the wall was coming up. The play was there to be made. He kind of alligator arms the ball because the wall is coming up. Bro, well, how about give up your body to win a World Series?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Wouldn't do it. Yet Michael Harris completely gave up his body last night to make the catch. I don't blame Bryce Harper for getting doubled up there. Like he's trying to score on that play. That, in my opinion, that's a risk you got to take. Otherwise, there's 2 outs and he's on first. What is that going to do for you? Right? So I don't blame Bryce Harper there. But the bats came to life for Atlanta, and what a bloody scene that was. You know, it's going to be fascinating to see what the atmosphere is going to be like in Philadelphia. And can that atmosphere swing the momentum back in the favor of the Phillies? Because darn it, if the Atlanta Braves do not have all of the momentum right now. And I got to tell you, last night in the Ryan household, okay, I was downstairs watching that game for about an hour. Then a little bit of guilt started to come over me. And guilt started to come over me because we did not have Jackson this last weekend, right? Jackson was with his biological dad. We didn't have Jackson. And Jackson was home. And, bonus dad is down in the man cave. We call it the ninja cave, not hanging out with the family. So at like 8:15, 8:30, I go back upstairs. All right. We've got pizza, we've got chicken tenders, and we've got Casper the Friendly Ghost, the movie on. I don't know anything that happened in that movie. I was sitting there with my phone, watching the Gamecast the entire time. 1 and 2. The Gamecast is cool. You ever watched a game on that, Diesel? It shows you like their hot zones, where to pitch the players. Okay, we'll definitely want to pitch the player right here, and it shows you everything kind of in real time. And like when Austin Riley hit that home run, I'm not lying to you. They like the ESPN app dropped confetti on like over the app. It was crazy.
When Austin Riley hit that home run, my first thought was too high. Too high. Do you remember from Major Leagues?
Yeah.
When somebody's hitting a home run, it's too high. That's not too high. It's too far. So I thought, man, that he skied that ball. If it gets over the fence, it's barely getting over the fence, or it's going to be caught at the fence. Don't let it happen like that. But he had just enough on it.
Just enough on it, man. They came back from 4-0, more than halfway through the game, tie the series at 1. You go from an 88% chance of losing to a 70% chance of winning. I think if it goes back to Atlanta, there's an 80% chance of winning.
It feels like, the Braves came alive. It feels like they Roger Dorned themselves.
This morning at 9:10 a.m., I activated myself.
The Braves have activated themselves.
They've activated themselves. Be aware. Be very, very aware. So just like I thought that was postseason baseball at its absolute best, at its absolute finest. But I'll tell you, prior to that, Diesel, prior to that very moment, there was a lot of feeling of, this postseason setup doesn't benefit the best teams. Look what's happening to them. You know what I mean? Look, the Rangers are up 2-0 on Baltimore. Okay. Mm-hmm. The Twins are tied 1-1 with the Astros. So the team that didn't have the bye, the teams that didn't have the bye are 3-1.
Yeah. Taking time off is detrimental.
3-1 in the NL. Now the teams that don't have the bye are 3-1. They were almost 4-0. Okay. They're 3-1. Gary Sheffield Jr. says it's total BS what they're doing. Any team who's leading is naturally going to say, "Oh, cry me, cry. Go ahead, cry." No, I'm just telling you, it's weird. It's odd. Philadelphia gets to get in a groove. Atlanta gets out of their groove. The bats are cold. The bats are cold. Well, why do you think the bats are cold? You've been in a routine now for 6 months. You're going to break the routine right before the postseason begins. You don't think that 1% your coordination may be off makes the difference between a flyout and a home run?
How much would it cost the Braves to employ a team that's already eliminated to come play a couple exhibition games in their home stadium?
Yeah, it's a hell of an idea. Hey, A's, you guys haven't had a home game in a whole year. You're moving anyway. Come on down here. We'll pay you. Just give us a couple exhibition games. The road teams are dominating in this series. And it really, really is something. All right, my friends, if you are a Braves fan, congratulations. We've got more on that to get to on the show today. If you like the baseball content, reward us. Let us see that you like it on the madworldattractions.com text line at 71307. Start your text with the word fan, and away you go. When we get the engagement via calls, via texts, that's when we do more of that kind of content. If we do that kind of content and we don't get interaction, that's when we stop doing that sort of content. So if you're a Braves fan, do what I do. You know, I'm gluten-free. If I go to the store and I see that you have a gluten-free cake or like a gluten-free hot dog bun, I'm buying it to reward you for carrying that, right? Are you guys going to reward us for opening with baseball today? 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. We talk Clemson football with the director of broadcasting at Clemson. His name is Don Munson, and he joins us next here on Offsides. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, joined right now, as we are each and every Tuesday at this time, by the director of broadcasting at Clemson University. His enthusiasm is infectious, and he joins us right now as he does each and every week. Don Munson joins us on the show. Don, you know, this is one of those days where we come off kind of a lackluster performance, where, you know, the point is, the bottom line is Clemson gets the win. It is a Power 5 win. You're always going to take that. Yet to me, there were a lot of things to work on. Sometimes coaches love that. Sometimes they do not. My overarching feeling is I'm surprised at some of the mistakes we're still seeing on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think Cade Klubnik is coming along as fast as some would like. Is that about how you would assess it?
Well, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, it's never as bad as it appears. It's never as good as it appears. I mean, when you blow somebody out 55-13, it's never as good as it appears. And when you win a game 17-12, it's never as bad as it appears. I mean, you go back to 1981, Clemson goes to Tulane. Now, what if we had social media back in 1981? What if we had all these sports call-in shows in 1981? People would be calling for Danny Ford's head. They'd be calling for, Nelson Stowe, all those guys, the coaching staff. So, just relax a little bit. Now, is Cade coming along as fast as most people want? Probably not, but that's all right. That's, whose fault is that? Is that Cade's fault? Is that coach's fault, or is that your own fault because of your own stupid expectations? Don't get caught in that. Just because your expectations don't meet mine, that's nobody's fault but your own. That's not my fault. That's nobody's fault but your own.
Interesting. Very, very interesting stuff. Don Munson joining us here on the show today. So with that said, Don, what are your expectations for Cade?
Well, my expectations are to see them kind of work on the little stuff this week, get back to some fundamental things, try to get some people, totally healthy. I'm hoping that when we go to Miami that we'll have everybody healthy that it hasn't had surgery. So let's put it that way. So I think that we should have Nate Wiggins back. Hopefully we'll get Antonio Williams back as well. And I think that both of those guys will help both sides of the football. Defensively, this team is playing unbelievably well. I mean, they're playing really well. And I think that is getting overlooked because, chicks dig the long ball. Everybody wants to talk about that's what everything is always about. It's always about the offense. I mean, when you win a game 55-13, you don't hear people praising the defense. You hear them praising the offense and what they were able to do. So, but defensively, this team is playing well enough to win a lot of ball games. And sometimes it may be ugly like it was this past Saturday.
Don, Clemson doesn't always make as big a deal as some other programs in the state do about their way too early recruiting success. What can you tell us about any big names who are leaning towards Clemson, who you feel like might be a lock for the Tigers next year?
Oh, I don't know that you can get into any of that right now, to be perfectly honest with you, Mark. I mean, it's because we're just in a different era. I mean, we're in a completely different era. Until you get to signing day in December and see a guy actually sign a letter of intent, and even then, I mean, we've seen it already happen. We saw it happen last year. Guys sign letter of intent, but then not honor that. So we're in a completely different era right now. So I don't even get caught in that. When signing day comes, when a guy shows up on campus, that's when you can feel pretty confident about, and then when they do show up, you're never really sure what they have. I mean, obviously you knew what we had when we signed Trevor. You knew what we had when we signed Deshaun, when we signed Sammy, when we signed CJ. All right. But those kind of guys, those are generational type of players. When you have a generational type of player, so we're just going to have, other than that, you're just kind of waiting to see really what transpires and what happens. Travis Etienne is a perfect example of that. Etienne was a guy that they had to sign because of a running back left. He was a high 3-star, a low 4-star, had never touched campus before, had never been, really in contact with Clemson coaches until about 2 weeks prior to signing day in February. And then he turns out to be the best running back that ever came through the Atlantic Coast Conference, and I would argue the best player that ever came through the Atlantic Coast Conference. But nobody really knew, nobody was glowing over the fact that Travis Etienne had signed with Clemson. But it just happened that way.
And he turned out, look at the job he's doing in the professional ranks as well.
No doubt.
Clemson South in Jacksonville now. Yeah, they might just take up residence in London now, Don. I mean, with what they've done the last couple of weeks. Don, I was critical of the fans' mass exodus at the end of the third quarter. I'm not sure if that's something from your seat, Don, you take note of, you notice, and I don't know if it's like pre-planned, we're going to leave at the end of the third quarter, if it's they're kind of disgusted with the way the team has played, or there's no more college football playoff on the line, so we're not going to stay for the – but I look at it like this, Don. You get 6 to 7 home games a year. The games are 3.5 hours long. You tell us that Death Valley is your favorite place on earth. You multiply 3.5 hours times 6 to 7. That's 24 hours. You get to spend one day in your favorite place all year long. Where do you have to go that's more important than where you are? And that was my feeling, and I think some Clemson fans take exception to that. Why not stay for the whole game, Don?
Well, I'm with you, but I really do not notice because I'm not looking for that, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm just not concentrating on that. So I really don't know. I took no notice of what was happening at the third. This is really the first that I've heard of it, to be honest with you. So obviously at halftime, there's a lot of people that'll go out and not come back. I mean, it's 100% full until about 4 minutes before half. And then halftime will come up, and you may get 90% of those people come back in, maybe sometimes just 85, depending upon, what's going on. But that's also just today's day and age. People's attention span just a little shorter than it was back when you and I were going to games and being, kids and doing every kind of stuff. It's just the attention span, and there's so much other stuff to entertain folks that That's why it's a tough sell.
Don, this is Diesel here. Obviously the most popular guy on a team that's not performing particularly well is the backup quarterback. In your mind, in what ways could the Kelly Bryant to DJ Uiagalelei transition and then the DJ Uiagalelei to Cade Klubnik transition affect Dabo's decision-making process with Christopher Vezina waiting in the wings?
Oh, I don't think it has any effect right now because, if you're there at practice and you're watching, you understand the separation that's going on right there. Cade's light years ahead of Christopher right now. I mean, he's just light years ahead. I mean, if something were to happen to Klubnik, in the next game at Miami, they would try to get Vezina ready, but even that would probably take a couple of weeks. Hunter Helms would be the guy that would come in and run the show, for him. And I think that Hunter is, exceptionally capable at being able to do that. But I don't think that there's any turning to Christopher Vezina that's in the thought process right now. To be they want to try to redshirt him and get a little bit more separation between the two. But CV, I don't think you have to worry about that at all as far as that being a legit conversation.
It's incredible, Don. You in our field, we have a little bit different position, Don, where, you see and you're around the team and you pick up the vibe that's around the team. And then I love having you on because we largely get, the vibe around the team is really positive. There's a lot of good feeling around the team. We are kind of the voice of the fan, and the fan is saying, I'm not seeing a lot of explosiveness from this offense. That's what we hear a lot of the time. Not a lot of explosiveness out of the running back room. But I do see a ton of explosiveness out of Tyler Brown, a 3-star kid out of Greenville High School who just might be at the very top of the wide receiver depth chart right now. Do you think Dabo and the coaching staff is as surprised as the rest of us are that this kid is this good and this explosive so soon?
Yeah, I think it probably caught him a little off guard, to be perfectly honest with you. And we've seen that time from time, not just with, a wide receiver position or, even a running back position. I mentioned Travis, and certainly Etienne was a surprise to them at his explosiveness that was available to him offensively. But now the question becomes with Tyler is, he's taking a college beating. And a college beating is different than a high school beating. When you're taking a beating in high school, you're taking it from 15, 16, 17-year-old, maybe 18-year-old kids, okay? In college, particularly now, some of these guys have been around 5 or 6 years over there on the defense. All of a sudden, you're an 18, 19-year-old body, and you're taking blows from a 22, 23-year-old. That's significantly different. Significantly different. And so it's going to be wear and tear on him will probably be, how does he stand up? How does he play the second half of the season? I think will be a big question mark to see how he answers that. Hopefully he answers it exceedingly well.
Don, at times this season, it's looked like the offense and everything has clicked for Clemson. You could say that a little bit in the Florida State game. You could say it about the Syracuse game. Obviously, the Wake Forest game was a step back. Nothing in this sport is ever linear. It's always that Paula Abdul song, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But do you predict at any point with the remaining 6 games on the schedule that things will click into place and sort of lock in for Clemson the rest of the season?
Well, I mean, that's, can I predict that? No. I don't think any of us can predict that unless you got a crystal ball and you've already seen it. So that's why you show up game to game, and that's why you show up and watch it to see what happens. People always, my favorite question I get throughout the week is, Don, how do you feel about the game? And my answer is, I have no feeling about the game because none of us know. None of us know. That's why we show up and watch it. And we're either ecstatic or we're disappointed. One of the two. Very rarely do you come out of it riding the fence. That was okay. I mean, how often do you come out of a game if you're a fan of a team? That was okay. You don't ever say that. You're either disappointed or you're ecstatic. One of the two. But that's also, again, I've said this on your show, and I'll say it on every. That's why we're called fans. Short for fanatic. That's what fanatics do. And so, but you hope, yes, that as this goes along, that the offense does get better and that it makes strides game to game and that people get more comfortable in the roles. I think that obviously we saw that at Syracuse. I thought that the Syracuse, what they did at Syracuse, following up from Florida State, because Florida State I thought was just a tremendous effort, both sides of football, and I thought they came back and did it again against Syracuse. And then unfortunately they didn't do it against Wake. But they got to win, and that's the most important thing. And now you get an off week. You watch Miami go to North Carolina. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond after what happened to them last week. And then we'll head off to South Beach and see if we can't go take care of business.
On that time off, Don, what are the areas of focus you think during this break, and how does Dabo and company typically spend this time?
Well, I think that ball security, and I think there's obvious reasons for that. And I mean ball security in all phases of the game. So I think there's that. I think offensive line what are you going to do? Because I think there is a question mark of what's going to happen at right guard with the absence of Walker Parks. Does Harris Sewell? Now I think he showed some things against Wake that does he all of a sudden, walk in there and take over that position, which I think actually would be a good thing if that could happen, having a young freshman over there, even though, Parks is going to come back. So he'll be back next year. He's not like he's having surgery, even he's not going to be gone. He'll be back. So I think offensive line is also an area. And then I think just, you've got, in my mind, I think you just got to figure out running game. Clemson, we haven't had a 100-yard rusher since the opener against Duke. We've been rushing it for close to 200 yards per game. And if you look at the combined stats between Shipley and Maffa, you can say, well, the tailback spot is putting out there about 140, 150 yards per game. But you'd like to see one guy kind of take over and be dominant. And we'll see what the second half of the season brings us, whether that's going to be Shipley or whether that's going to be Maffa.
His name is Don Munson. He's the director of broadcasting at Clemson University. Don, this is becoming one of my favorite segments of the week. We thank you so much for your time as always. Enjoy the bye week. Safe travels. Moving ahead. We'll talk to you next week.
Appreciate y'all having me on as always. Go Tigers.
There you go. Don Munson, director of broadcasting. Diesel Don absolutely bringing his fastball today, man. I mean, that clip. Now, I'm about to tweet this, Diesel. You tell me if I'm quoting this correctly. I asked Don Munson if the criticism of Cade Klubnik is fair. Those expectations, is it the coach's fault, Cade's fault, or are they your own stupid expectations that are out of line? Is that right? Like your own, in parentheses, fans, right? I mean, because he's not talking, I don't think, directly to me. He's speaking passionately about, is that accurate, do you think?
Oh, yeah, that's accurate.
Do I have that accurately? Okay, good. So, guys, bringing the fastball today is Don Munson. And it is interesting. There's been a little bit of a debate this week, about what the goals of the team should be. Susan Lloyd, who's a friend of mine, Parker's Tiger on Twitter, she's a sports photographer for Clemson. She says, well, the only goals I care about are what the team's goals are, not what fans say. But I don't know, Diesel. I mean, this is a program that made the playoffs 6 times in a row, okay? Certainly a program that made the playoffs 6 times in a row wouldn't want there to be 3 straight years where they don't make the playoff, right? So isn't making the CFP a goal, right? And if making the CFP is not a goal, shouldn't the expectations be increased a little bit? And I've even heard some Clemson fans say, well, you can't expect to make the CFP every year. Well, why not? Don't you think that's what Georgia fans expect? Don't you think that's what Alabama fans expect? Do you want to lower the expectation below that of those programs? Guys, again, maybe my issue is that I can't hold others to the same expectations that I have for myself. Because like Diesel will tell you, man, working with Mark is exhausting sometimes. Yeah, because you know why? Because we have like this internal drive to be great, right? And I always want us to be pushing to absolutely be our best. It is exhausting sometimes. But because I hold myself to a very, very high standard, And because whenever I feel not good about a show, I always try to make sure there aren't two shows where I feel that way back to back. I don't know. Maybe my expectations for myself are too high. And then maybe that carries over into the expectations for the teams I cover. Should Clemson fans expect to be in the CFP this year? Is that a realistic annual goal? Maybe some years you don't hit the goal. But is that not a realistic expectation for Clemson for where they should be? 844-FAN phone. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663 is where you can get to us on the show today. I've got another interesting Braves question for you that covers the vast popularity of this team. And we'll get to that next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. And we are the Fan Upstate. Driving into work today, I was behind a car, and there was a sticker on the car, Diesel, and it just said, F you. And I'm like, well, what did I do to you, man? I'm just driving to work, minding my own business, doing my own thing. Why you got to be like that? Oh, no. Oh, Furman University. Oh, I see what you did here. There's something that's just charming about that, isn't there? F you. Hashtag F you all the time.
Coming from such a prestigious institution, just that little bit of rolling around in the mud is kind of fun.
Oh, it is, isn't it? And it's like, it shows you too that they don't take themselves too seriously, unlike my own alma mater, who had every chance to claim FU because it was available, and they instead chose UF just to avoid that very moniker. Avoid, embrace, brother, embrace. And the Furman donors embrace that. Credit to them, serious props to you guys for owning what you did. All right? Really proud of you guys for that. All right, let's catch up on what you guys are sending into us. Didn't you hate Jeff last week? I'm not sure what that means, Texter. This upcoming game at Citizens Bank Park is going to be nuts. Those fans are going to be loud and annoying. Braves, Phillies, 100%. They are going to be loud and annoying, and I, for one, cannot wait for the atmosphere tomorrow night. Cannot wait. Let's see here. Let's continue. Travis d'Arnaud is my favorite Brave. A texter says he's a type 1 diabetic like myself. Michael Harris is up there too. Those guys seem like genuinely good dudes. So says Trey. Texter says the bye week in the postseason is a joke. All the top seeds have lost or struggled. Yeah, the top seeds are 2 and 6. Texter says, I knew the minute Riley hit the ball, it was gone. He may be the most clutch player on the Braves. Philly's best chance to beat him, if it takes the Braves a couple games to wake back up from the layoff, if it takes that time, maybe, all Philly needs to do is beat him 1 out of 3 times. But now they need to beat him 2 out of 3 times, and maybe that's too much. Let's make one thing abundantly clear as far as I'm concerned, though. Philly's chance to win this series is to close it in Philadelphia. So it's not one game at a time. They've got to win both. If this goes back to Atlanta, Atlanta moves on. And I think I'm right on that. Let's see here. Matt J says, love the Braves discussion. Just hope they can keep up the momentum. Texter says, so I had the same thought yesterday as Diesel, but just bringing up one of your minor league teams and pay them a good salary for change for that week. Yeah, you're like to scrimmage. Yeah, like you need to do that. You need to stay sharp. Rest versus rust, right? That's the question. Texter says the Braves played in uniform with fans and used their AAA team in Gwinnett to make 2 complete teams for 3 days was open to the public. Did they? I wasn't unaware of that. So did they play full games? You said they made 2 complete teams for 3 straight days, was open to the public. They played in uniform. Texter says, Mark, yes, sir, more baseball content, especially Braves. Did not think they were going to wake up. All I can say is it's about time. Also, the bullpen was great as well with the hold to close it all out. Awesome. Texter says, yes, Mark and Diesel like the baseball talk, but postseason only. Baseball season is too long. It is just too long. I agree. Texter says, Braves country represents Tennessee too. More on that momentarily. Texter says, after watching Syracuse play UNC last weekend, I'm even less impressed with Clemson's last 2 performances. Syracuse is really bad. No, Syracuse isn't really bad. Syracuse beat Purdue on the road. Syracuse beat a tricky Army, okay? Syracuse is probably a middle-of-the-pack Power 5 team, all right? They're not Vanderbilt. They're probably not South Carolina or Florida either. You know, the Syracuse is probably Mississippi State. Go Braves, chop chop, but on Don's interview, hit Lonzo's meow button, LOL. Mark made Don hit the fields. That's what we try to do. That's what we try to do. Texter says, Mark, you said it best yesterday. Clemson is making its bed like Florida post-urban. From Hunt GPT. Texter says, I was able to pick up the Smith & James gift card yesterday. Thanks for giving me a question I could answer. I'm looking forward to looking good like I know I should. Trey, you're going to have to send us a picture of you and your new Smith & James gear. It's going to look unbelievable on you, sir. Unbelievable. I'm planning a trip to Smith & James myself very, very soon as well. Very, very soon as well. So, yes, my friend, you will certainly be looking your best. Okay, let's reset here. We opened with Braves talk on the show today. And I'm struck by this format where, you know, the best teams have buys and then all come out rusty for the second series. The wild card teams are in a groove. Baseball seems to be so precise, right? That like any little time off, you essentially need to go through spring training again to get ready. You know, certainly you like spending time with your family, but you come back and you're not sharp. You're not sharp at all. So, anyways, guys, you know, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about the Braves and what they have to do, and I'm fascinated by their level of popularity, and I understand the why. You know, I really do. I understand that they were the only team that you guys saw for a long period of time, but what did they do to keep you? You know, like, what did they do to keep you all this time? Because your loyalty to the Braves seems different than your loyalty to, say, the Carolina Panthers. You guys are done with the Carolina Panthers. You know, your loyalty to the Braves seems different than your loyalty to your college teams. I was at the Clemson-Wake Forest game on Saturday, watching thousands of fans stream out in a one-score game in the fourth quarter. One-score game, 10-6 in the fourth quarter. Thousands of fans streaming out of Death Valley. You know, like, what did the Braves do to keep you? I know they had all those years of postseason berths, but they only won one World Series, right? You know, like Diesel and I have discussed the criteria for being able to leave your team. You know, like, when is it okay to peace out on your team? And, you know, if you tell me you make the postseason 15 times and you win one World Series, I'd say you have a right if you want to peace out on your team. But you guys don't with the Atlanta Braves. Why is that? Why are the Atlanta Braves the one team that holds your loyalty forever? What is it about that connection? Let us know on the MadWorldAttractions.com text line 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. When we come back, we've got for you a Clemson midseason report card. That's next. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. And we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ron, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. You guys have a ton of choices out there, man. We truly do appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you guys so much for making us part of your afternoon. Means the world to us, man. It does. Every day, all day. Thank you guys so much for all you do for us. Tomorrow on the show, do not forget, as Diesel grabs his coffee, do not forget, we've got our upset pick contest. We've got Josh Pate of the Late Kick Show coming tomorrow. We have Kelly Ford goes inside the numbers with us on college football at 3:20 p.m. We've got our high school athlete of the week interview tomorrow. All of that is coming your way on tomorrow's show as well. So an absolutely, positively jam-packed week. And we've got a lot to get to today. So the question was, how have the Atlanta Braves kept your loyalty where other teams fail to do so? You know, I can walk into a major department store whose logo is a bullseye and not find a single Carolina Panthers item in the entire store. Okay? But I can go into any store and find Braves gear. I can go into grocery stores and find Braves gear. You know, how come the Carolina Panthers haven't kept your loyalty and the Braves do? You know, how come I'm at the Clemson game on Saturday and thousands of fans are streaming out in a one-score game? A behavior that I consider unacceptable. Interestingly, Diesel, I saw a few people, kind of running to a different daddy on the text line on Rob Brown's show today, saying, well, Mark Ryan said that we were unacceptable. And it's just like, well, why wouldn't you come to us about that? We're the ones doing it. What is the Rob Brown show going to do for you about that? Like, if you have an issue with what we said, why wouldn't you address it with us?
Like, you know what time our show is? As a matter of fact, you know, if people are upset, and I'm just confirming this before I tell you something that may not be entirely accurate, I'm fairly certain that on our Facebook posts where things like this go viral, where a majority of the people who are willing to comment will comment, there's a clear link to our show's webpage that clearly shows the time of day that we're on. If you just clicked it, listen to what we had to say, which I know you don't. There's probably about 2% actually click the audio. I had somebody last week, some Gamecock fan, upset about something we said. And he said, oh, I wouldn't expect anything else from an article from the station. I was like, well, it's not an article. So clearly you didn't listen to the audio.
Sure.
Clearly you don't know what the hell it is you're talking about because you believe that this is a link to an article. And it's not. It's a link to an audio podcast.
But the very fact, though, Diesel, that there would be people.
Yeah, well, it's because they're weak.
That and I bet you that kid, that kid told on his sister to mom all day long, too.
So what about
Rob? What do you think about these guys? They said we're unacceptable. It's unacceptable what we did. Why won't you? Like, we're the ones who said it. Why don't you come to us about that? What is Rob going to do for you? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not fair to him.
It's going to make him feel better.
Yeah, it's not fair to him that you run to him with your complaints about us, right? Yeah, I mean, that's what it feels like, right? That's what it feels like. Gold Rush, the upset pick contest does not come out till tomorrow at 4 p.m. Come on, man. Gold Rush is wishing it was already Wednesday. Texter says, Mark, I don't believe Don Munson didn't notice the fan exodus. Well, we got to take him at his word, Texter.
I've heard a lot of people, the most commonly spread excuse that I've read is, oh, all these people are getting down out of the stadium so they can gather at the paw.
No.
So they can gather at the paw. You're telling me that 70% of the attendance of that game,
yeah,
because it was no more than 30% full at the worst photo that I've seen, and there were still two teams on the field playing at that time. You're telling me that 70%. What is that? What does the stadium hold? 82,000?
Yeah, something like
Something like that. Okay, let's do the math here.
By the way, Shadow of Death Valley chimes in. Also invites you guys to get to us on the text line. But he says that was a great interview with Don Munson, guys. Just catching up with the stream now. Yeah, we got some kind words as well on that from none other than Johnny Carrots, who said Don Munson is always a great interview on the Fan Upstate because they ask real questions and he gives real answers. No homers.
70% of 82,000 is 57,400 people.
At least.
You're telling me, you want me to believe that 57,000 fans exited their seats and were crammed into portals and wherever to get down and meet at the paw?
No.
That's why the stadium was empty. That's why 57,000 seats were empty, because they were all out in the portals waiting to get down to the field level. That's why it was empty. Okay. Can 57,000 people fit in a football stadium on a field level? I'm not sure 57,000 people can fit on the field.
It's not passing the smell test, guys. It's not passing the smell test. You know, the people I saw leaving didn't look particularly upset. It just looked like it was time for them to go.
Ayatollah of rock and roll, you're guilty here. You're telling on yourself. He says, excuse me. Whoa. I almost ran you for no reason there, Ayatollah. He says, I can't say that I left the game Saturday, but I could not care less. Thank you for using that phrase correctly. If folks leave early, who am I to tell folks how to cheer for their team? You can absolutely tell people how to cheer for their team. You can say you suck for leaving early.
Well, you do. Honestly, it's a one-score game in the fourth quarter. You're not exactly helping your team out. You know, the best time for Wake Forest to snatch a win there, steal one, was when everyone was filing out of the stadium. You know, I mean, like, we're all judged by the home field advantage that we create or don't create. You've said it, Diesel, about Coastal Carolina. You're like, gosh, I feel bad for that team.
Yeah.
Like like Conway is just dead, bro. It's just absolutely dead. We're all judged by that. All of us are judged, okay, by the home field advantage you create or fail to create. So all that is to say, where are we with a Clemson midseason report card? Okay, where are we with that right now? If you would be so kind, on the madworldattractions.com text line, could you send us your letter grade? You can include pluses or minuses for Clemson at the halfway points. Clemson, this is unbelievable to me, Diesel, is behind Georgia Tech in the ACC standings. What? They're behind the Yellow Jackets in the ACC standings. Now, I know Georgia Tech got that Hail Mary right after they lost to Bowling Green. They got the Hail Mary, a figurative Hail Mary against Miami. They also have a win over Wake Forest. All right. And they have a loss barely to, in my opinion, the overrated Louisville, 39-34. But Wake Forest is 2-1 in ACC play, and Clemson now finds itself in a tie at the halfway mark of their season in sixth place. There's three teams tied for sixth. Clemson, North Carolina State, and Virginia Tech are all 500 in the conference. Clemson's in 6th place in the ACC. It's just, I can't believe that I'm saying that.
Keep fighting. You might get fourth place.
So what's the grade? What's the grade at the halfway point of the season? All right. Diesel, I regret not asking Don Munson that. I didn't think of it at the time. I don't know why I didn't think of it. It's on the rundown. I could have asked him. I just didn't think of it. Diesel, my grade's a D. It's a D. It's not an F.
Yeah.
Okay. They've got a winning record. They're 4-2. But, maybe I'm guilty, as Don Munson said, of my own stupid expectations. But Phil Steele has the most accurate college football preview magazine. He said Clemson's making the national championship game this year.
Oof.
He's got the most accurate magazine over the last 20 years. All right. Clemson missed the CFP 2 years in a row. This is going to be 3 years in a row. To say that this season thus far has not fallen short of expectation is not being honest. It's just not being honest. Clemson is 4-2. They're this close from being 3-3. I don't really care to hear we're 3 or 4 plays away from being unbeaten. I don't really care to hear that, especially after I just watched what I saw in person on Saturday in Death Valley. I don't really care to hear that. There are 4 ranked teams in the ACC: Louisville, Florida State, North Carolina, and Duke. And right now, Clemson is worse than all of them, in my opinion. I just watched you play. I just saw what I saw. I don't have Clemson beating Duke tomorrow. Sure as hell don't have them beating North Carolina tomorrow. I thought Florida State got Clemson's very best shot. This is a team that needs to get a lot better. Now, offensively, Diesel, I would say it's, defensively, I think there's been some really, really good moments there. All right. But I'm looking at the picture in totality. Okay. The defense, I might give a B+ to, but the picture in totality, the offensive line has played poorly. Cade Klubnik, in my opinion, is not where he should be. Okay. Those are my own stupid expectations, but they are my expectations. All right. People are now starting to say the running back room looks slow because they don't want to put Will Shipley's name on it. Put his name on it. He looks slow. He looks not explosive. He has been good, not great at Clemson. There is a fair question to ask, why is he getting so many more carries than Phil Maffa, given the difference in production? Phil Maffa fumbles the ball. That could be part of the reason. Cade's production is not there. Tyler Brown is the one bright spot on offense for this team, but I wonder if it's a bit of an indictment that the best receiver on the team is a 3-star true freshman. How did we get here? If you're a Clemson fan, are you not asking yourself that? How did we get here where a 3-star true freshman is the best wide receiver on the team? My grade for Clemson at the halfway mark is a D. Is that fair or unfair? You guys tell me. I'm always going to shoot straight with you.
I think it's fair because they're so wildly inconsistent on offense. We don't know. The defense is fine. I don't have any problems with the defense. That is a championship caliber defense, at least with the ACC championship caliber. They're good. But, who are they week over week? Are they a good offensive team? Are they a mid offensive team? Are they a bad offensive team? Do they have good running backs? Do they have good wide receivers? Do they have a good quarterback? We don't know. It's literally put all possible yeses and nos to these questions in a bag, reach in and grab a couple. And that's how the team is going to perform week in and week out. We just don't know who this team is. And, we're deep into a season at this point. You should know who you are. You should know what your skill sets are and then be able to pound those skill sets and hope that it's good enough to win you football games. But we just don't know.
Texter says the fans in Death Valley were probably leaving to watch the Braves. It was a 5 to 6 p.m. start. Well, you just showed your priorities.
They weren't leaving to watch the Braves. You know how long it takes to get out of Clemson on game day. They're not getting home in time to catch the game.
Texter says people are so soft with disappointment these days. It's your take, opinion, bottom line. It seems that way. I don't particularly care for this text because, number one, it's not accurate. Number two, he doesn't get it. He gives you the reason in his text, Diesel. He says, Mark, when y'all get Dabo and Brad Brownell on like the flagship station does, then you're doing something. All right, Texter, number one, we had Dabo on. We had Dabo on 2 months ago. So Dabo has been on, okay? Number two, if you were Brad Brownell, would you come on this show? Just ask yourself that question. Would you come on this show if you were Brad Brownell? We've had Dabo on the show. We appreciate that. We love having Don Munson on the show. Texter says, Mark, my grade for Clemson at the halfway mark is a D+. Diesel, can you put that on the poll? And because we get 4 options, Diesel, we're not going to give the option A, okay, because that's bogus. Nor do we value anyone who says this is an A. So the 4 options will be B, C, D, or F, okay? What is your grade for Clemson football at the halfway mark of their season? B, C, D, or F? What is it? I say D. Texter says F for giving the game away to FSU, but D overall. Texter says Julius Peppers and Muhsin Muhammad will be inducted into the Panthers Hall of Fame on October 29th. It would be really bad if there's more Houston Texans fans there that day. What would be worse than that is if Bryce Young drops 3 INTs and CJ Stroud drops 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That'd be worse than that, you know? Let's see here. Texter says, Mark, these are his words. Clemson fans, are you going to sit here for that? Clem sucks fans are as fair weather as the team. Go Gamecocks. Texter says, Mark, I give Clemson a C. Team has played like the stock market offensively. Stout defense, though. So says Hunt GPT. Yeah, but Hunt GPT is being outside of the top 25 at the midway part of the season. Is that a C to you? C is okay. Okay to me would be 5-1, not 4-2. That 5-1 is okay. You know, that's 4-2 outside of the top 25. That's like, whoa, what happened? How did you get here? Texter says, Mark, Clemson having a problem keeping a full stadium has been a problem for years now. It's nothing new. And listen to this, Clemson fans. A texter says, my grade for Clemson at the halfway mark, Mark Ryan, it's an A+ because Clemson sucks, and that's great. I always slightly worry, Diesel, that people are going to think it's me saying that and it's the texter saying that. And I don't think Clemson sucks, okay? I don't think they suck, and you must be a South Carolina fan. Don't worry, you got it coming to you at the end of the year. Gamecocks are not winning that game.
Ayatollah asks, why would anyone want Brad Brownell for a radio interview? It's a good question. Dylan Legore, easy, C-. Ayatollah agrees, oh, definitely an F. Great. I wouldn't give him an F at this point. But, you know, for a 4-2 season, for a 4-2 team, it sure as hell feels a lot like 3-3, doesn't it?
It does.
This is the most 3-3 feeling 4-2 record I've ever seen. Whew.
Looks like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
James Gilstrap says, Houston fans traveling to Charlotte? I'll believe that when I see it.
How about we believe this? We've got Jake Crane from Crane and Company, my friends, joining us next right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Joined, as always, by the very chillaxed, very excitable, very beloved over these parts. Absolutely booming in popularity as well. Crane and Company, the host of Crane and Company, Jake Crane, joins us right now on the show. How's Nashville treating you, sir? How's life?
Man, it's great. It's the best time of year. The weather finally flipped about the past week and a half over here. I mean, it just feels like football. I mean, we got playoff baseball, college football, the NFL, college basketball's around the corner. Heck, I'm even excited about the NHL. Who'd have thought? As now I live in a place where they actually have a hockey team. But no, I mean, it's a fantastic time of year and just excited. I wish the college football season would kind of slow down a little bit.
Man, it does feel that way. So with that said, We are giving Clemson grades at the halfway point of the season right now, Jake, and my grade, frankly, is a D. They are 4-2, but if you told me at the halfway mark of the season Clemson isn't in the top 25, there's only two grades that are available. They're D or F. I think the defense is playing lights out right now. That earns the D, but it feels like it's close to a wheels falling off situation around these parts. What would your grade be at the halfway mark?
Yeah, I don't know how you look at it with the standard, the way that Clemson has it now, and kind of the way they're thought about and the new level and stage that, Dabo's been able to put them on. It can't be anything higher than a very low C minus or D. I don't think you can make a logical argument. Now, listen, that's a high class problem. I'd love to have that problem, but when you look at it, I do think there are some positives though. I know last week against Wake Forest, it was ugly. It was not the way that a decent amount of people thought it would. I mean, it was a 21-point spread. You don't get into the 20s, but I do think you're seeing Cade go up and down, right? That's what happens with young quarterbacks as they're developing. I thought against Syracuse, he looked really good moving around. I think it's starting to slow down for him a little bit, and then you have kind of a bump in the road, but you're still able to win. But I mean, with the standard as high as it is at Clemson, I think it would be more disrespectful if I said it was a B, if I gave them credit for just being 4-2 and not in the top 25. So I'm right there with you, Mark.
Jake, the Red River Shootout was everything we thought and hoped it would be on Saturday. Yeah. I think there's a good chance that we see these two teams face off again later on down the season. Would you expect a similar result, or in your mind, is Steve Sarkisian good enough at adjusting that he would the outcome would be different second time around?
Yeah, well, there's a reason I told everybody all week I'm not betting this game. I would not touch this game from a betting standpoint with a 10-foot pole. Here's what I think. I think two things can be true at once. I think Oklahoma was the more not aggressive but the more confident team. It seemed on the field. It looked like they were playing looser, like the pressure wasn't as much on them as it was on Texas. And I also think that Texas didn't play very well. You look at Quinn Ewers early in that game. After he had that first turnover, which he basically threw a slant right into a leveraged interior defender when they were running two-man, which, I mean, that's day one stuff you don't do. And then he kept looking down at the rush. He couldn't get to the check down fast enough. The defense looked like the defense that we've been accustomed to seeing from Texas, not being able to stop people in key moments. Nothing was working for them defensively. In all actuality, the only phase of the game that played well for Texas, I thought, was special teams. I mean, you look at the block punt, you look at some stuff in the return game, you look at the field goal kicking. I just was shocked that Texas went in there and kind of had that deer in the headlights look and regressed. But I do think they play again, and I think Texas wins. I don't see Texas playing that bad twice or not being able to adjust a little bit more Brent Venables with equal footing from a game plan standpoint.
Jake Crane joining us. Jake, I saw a little excerpt from you today on Sam Pittman and Arkansas, and I can hear the resignation in your voice. Is he on borrowed time? Is he the first Power 5 to get his walking papers this year?
Well, if it keeps going the way it's going, it's either he's going to be gone or this is the absolute last time he can make a coordinator change, because you can only replace so many coordinators before you get replaced. There's almost kind of like a golden rule and a golden number with that. But, I mean, at some point, and this is the analogy I made, it's hard not to root for Sam Pittman. If you've ever interviewed Sam Pittman or been around Sam Pittman, he's an awesome human being, but this is a business. It's almost like early in high school when you go stay at a buddy's house, like your sophomore year, and their parents, they go so well together, and you're like, man, that's what it looks like. And then by senior year, his parents are getting divorced, and it just shocks everybody. Like the marriage of Sam Pittman in Arkansas, it just made sense. I mean, it was basically a Nicholas Sparks book. You had the country coach who had bided his time to get a big head coaching job and been through the ringer, physical, tough-nosed guy going to Arkansas, which typically, at least the way it has been since I've grown up, was Arkansas was huge up front, and they would run the pass, and they were physical. And they haven't been good enough in that area. In the one area where you're supposed to take on the head coach's identity, Arkansas's offensive line, you're in year 4. You're about to get your 5th straight loss when you go play Alabama this weekend. At some point, you got to start, hey, maybe we do need to get some counseling, or maybe I just need to call my lawyer.
Jake, we spent some time last week listing the teams that really shock us that haven't made the college football playoff. It's a long and extensive list of blue bloods that just, for whatever reason, in the playoff era, have not made it into that Final Four. And a listener brought up Nebraska. Mark and I both laughed off the idea of Nebraska being a program that could even sniff a playoff anymore. And both of us are of the mind that, man, Nebraska is just too far gone out of their elite era, that they have essentially lost their blue blood status, and it doesn't surprise us that they suck. Why can't Nebraska get it right? And help us, Lord, is Matt Rule going to be able to do anything there with that program?
Well, look, I think, again, to use the toaster analogy, I mean, with Nebraska, it kind of seems like the same thing over and over again. And they didn't evolve when everybody else evolved. And I think Nebraska, location-wise, I understand that argument. If you've ever been out there, it really is in the middle of nowhere. But it just seems to me like the standard is one of those places, and you got to watch out so you don't get in this cycle, is when you've had so much success and you're held in the highest esteem, and all of a sudden there's a coaching change or a great coach retires or leaves, and then that next guy can't attain that success instantly and you fire him. And then a guy gets close and then you fire him. And then you get in this cycle of, after long enough, you haven't been to the pinnacle in so long. These young kids growing up don't think of you as one of those schools. Now you're not a cool place to go. Maybe the game evolved somewhat schematically and you didn't evolve. I think you see that still in today's game. So when it comes to Nebraska, can Matt Rule get them back to being respectable? I think that determines how you define respectable. Nebraska can't think of themselves, as bad as this sounds, and I know everybody wants to win, as Bama. They can't think of themselves as Georgia. They can't think of themselves as one of these upper echelon teams that has been there in the past 20 years, because that's a standard. You're not in that category anymore. Can you get back there? Yeah, it's possible. But respectable to me is Nebraska winning 8-9 games. That's what I think. It's almost like the political party that doesn't reach out to the young kids for like 30 years, and then they wonder why nobody votes for them 30 years later. It's not cool anymore.
Jake Crane joining us. Jake, shifting gears on you here, I want to ask you about the Carolina Panthers and Bryce Young and whether or not you feel that's going to be a mistake, not just because of the guys in this draft class, but because of the reality that perhaps if they stand pat, they get Caleb Williams this year with their own draft pick or another highly touted quarterback, and they still have wide receiver DJ Moore. All I can tell you, Jake, is, and I'm not sure if you know this about our area, Diesel and I are having to be crisis counselors here with the Gamecocks 2-3, Clemson 4-2, and the Carolina Panthers 0-5. When you look at that, I mean, are Carolina Panthers going to look back and say, man, we really screwed the pooch with that one?
Well, it's a real our heads pets are falling off situation right now in that corner of the country. It's just sometimes it goes down like that. Them's the breaks. Here's what I'll say. I think if you put Caleb Williams on the same Panthers team, you'd get the same result. I mean, football is not golf. It's not basketball. It's not baseball. One guy can't go out there and play just really, really good and win the game for everybody. The Panthers' offensive line, you just can't do it, right? The defense has been carrying them. We've seen some sparks from Bryce, but this is the NFL. If you don't have the cats around you, it's not going to work. And look, Bryce isn't perfect, but I think right now he's been put in a situation where it will never be this bad again. It is the worst ever. And sometimes that can be a good thing. You talk about a motivating factor. Come in your first year, being the number 1 overall pick with all the hoopla. You're looking at Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, Mac Jones is just totally forgotten. He didn't have a ton of help either, if we're going to be honest. But you come up and you're stuck on a team that, regardless of how much will you have, like if it was just about will, then Tebow would have been way more successful in the NFL. But it's not. This is the NFL. If you don't have the cats, you're not going to be able to compete. So I'd throw the roll on that. I think you'd be having the same result if it was Caleb Williams. It's the ultimate team sport.
Jake, in honor of Mario Cristobal, and maybe honor is not the right word to use around that guy.
Diesel.
What?
Diesel.
What's
Diesel.
the?
You want to know what I said?
Yeah.
You want to know what I said? And I know Shannon Dawson's kind of falling on the sword, right? But if I was anybody that was in the press box and that situation arose where they're like, hey, we should take a knee. He's like, no, let's just run one more play. I would have threatened to jump out of the press box. I'd have been like, I am going to jump out and die in front of everybody if y'all do this. Like, it's to that point. Or if I'm like that O-line coach that was trying to tell him, I may take my shirt off and run on the field. And you know what? We may get a 15-yard penalty. I may be looked at funny, but you'll understand it, and we'll have won the game. So I just still cannot – and this is the second time. Second time this man's done – that should almost be prison.
Well,
Like, I'm not saying, like, it should almost be a prison sentence. It's that bad.
What's the most boneheaded play or mistake that you personally witnessed as a coach in a game? Can you think of any? Does anything come to mind? That doesn't have to be that bad, because that's as bad as it gets.
Oh man, nothing that bad. I tell you what, we were playing. I think it was Troy, and they were running. We were running the play where you roll out. There's like 8 seconds left, 7 seconds left. We called it tombstone. And you roll out and you throw the ball. A receiver runs a vertical, so it's not grounding. And you know what I'm talking about. You throw the ball in as high and as far as you can and run out the clock. Well, we were up 5, and it was 4th down. There was like 7 or 8 seconds, and our quarterback rolled out, but he rolled too short. He didn't roll far enough. So when he threw it, there was still a second left, and they had a chance at a Hail Mary because it was around midfield. And I had always said, I understand that play of why you'd roll and throw it out. But why would I not just get the quarterback, get him in shotgun, snap it to him, and have him run back, looking at where the clock is, and literally just go down? Like, I've never understood that.
Jake, by itself, is that a fireable offense? I mean, it takes something really bad to be fired. You know, a lot of people get fired for an accumulation of misdemeanors. Yeah. But it takes something really bad to be fired on the spot. What does that rise to the level to for you?
Well, here's where I'm at on that. I hate to use the term like one play so egregious it's a fireable offense. I don't know if there's one play outside of you like punching somebody, or like, you know, Will Ferrell from the campaign, you like got mad and tried to punch somebody and hit a baby or something. But like, if there was ever a play where should be a fireable offense, I mean, this may be it. This may be it. Like, this makes me quite, you know, the first thing I thought of, Mark and Diesel, when I heard this, I said, you know what? I want to see his phone. I need to see his text messages, right? Who are you talking? There's just no way. There's no way that you work on that. You've been involved in it as long as you have been. You coach Inter Saban, that you don't take a knee right there. Like, is there like, let me check your DraftKings. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's that egregious. It's the worst I've ever seen. How does it get worse than that? How does it get worse than that? Name a play that's worse than that.
No, from a coaching standpoint, you can't. You can't. Like, a player running the wrong way would be one, but that's on the player. This was entirely on the coaches.
Jake, we did see I don't remember which team it was, but a wide receiver ran in motion in front of the ball this year. We did see that. Don't forget that.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, dang. Wow, we need to maybe we need to get him reevaluated. You didn't lose. I mean, this is literally the definition of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. You had total control, something you typically never have in football. 100% total control. You know how it is, guys. You work all week just praying that you can do the victory formation in the fourth quarter, and you don't do it. Like, I'm telling you, there would have been an act. I may have gotten arrested if I was on the coach, just so we didn't do that, just so somebody snapped back into reality. Like, I may have started taking off my clothes.
Jake, Texas A&M, Notre Dame. Who has a better chance this Saturday of keeping the wheels on the vehicle?
I'm going to say Notre Dame.
Wow.
Look, here's the thing with A&M, and y'all know me, I'm not the biggest Joe Milton fan of all time, but the fact that y'all got cooked that bad in the secondary, but sometimes it's not that you got cooked, it's how you got. It's like a steak, right? It's not that it's getting cooked, it's like how you cook it, right? You basically tried to line up in press, got toasted. You tried to play zone coverage, gave him so much cushion, you got toasted. The first read for Jalen Monroe was there every single time, basically. I've never seen the first read thrown to that many times. It's like reading a pop-up book. Just easy. Which was always, it's like the batter's not even swinging. You're just throwing strikes there. Burton, they wouldn't even get close to him. They wouldn't even get close to him. So A&M's incredible in the front seven, right? In the back end, they tried to pressure. They tried to sit back. Even with Joe Milton, I think he can hit those open throws. I think with Max Johnson, going on the road, I like Max. It just seems to me he does get some happy feet in there sometimes. I think Tennessee ekes that one out. But I think you're going to see a pissed-off Notre Dame team, honestly. Everybody keeps talking about how they're going to be out of it. No, I mean, they're a school that's based off of religion. They just don't give up. I can promise you that.
We'd like to close with you today, Jake, with a quick thought on Oregon, Washington. Dan Lanning seems like he's trying to build Georgia light on the West Coast against what could be a historically good Washington offense. Does the overall depth and talent of Oregon prove to be too much on the road?
I think the overall team balance of Oregon, there's a reason I picked them to win the Pac-12. I think USC is very offensive heavy. I think Washington is offensive heavy, even though their defense has punched a little bit above their weight. Not against the greatest schedule of all time, but Oregon hadn't played the greatest schedule. In a game where Oregon, a stat that jumps out to me, Oregon is ranked very poorly when it comes down to completion percentage given up, but they're number 5 in the country in yards per catch given up, which means they tackle very well in space, which means they're going to give you the underneath stuff and tackle you. They're going to tackle the bubble screen. Washington is a pass to run as a counter offense. They run it less than 40% of the time. I think Oregon, if the offense doesn't play at an elite level, is good enough defensively to keep them in the game as opposed to vice versa. If the Washington offense doesn't play fantastic, I don't think Washington's offense is good enough to stop Oregon's run game. I think Oregon can control the time with the new clock rule, limit possessions for Michael Penix. And look, Penix is a jump shooter. He gets hot in rhythm. He gets hot when he gets to his spots. I think Oregon can move him off his spot in the pocket, and they can disrupt him when he's outside the pocket trying to create. For those reasons, I like Oregon.
Host of national sports show Crane and Company, part of Real Daily Wire. Are we still 7:30 to 9 every day, Jake?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. It stays on, YouTube and Apple Podcasts and all that stuff. It lives there even after. But if you want to join the live call-in, live chat, we have a lot of fun over there. Blaine's story about mozzarella sticks, Stacy. I bet had a coronary on the air the other day. I was laughing so hard. But if you like that stuff, come check us out.
There you go. It's a fantastic show. Can you give us the synopsis of that story, Jake?
Yeah, basically my brother just started dating this girl, and he went over to her house, and there was 3 of her friends came over, and he had a lot of money on the Nebraska-Illinois game, and there was a bad call, and he got upset and said something kind of out loud, and one of the girls who he had known before through a previous encounter was like, "Blaine, can you be quiet?" He just looked there and was like, "Shut up! And apparently she had gone with him out with some friends, and he ordered a bunch of appetizers, and he said he's never seen a human being do that to mozzarella sticks before.
That'll happen. That's what Nebraska does to people, and people want to know why they're not in the CFP. Jake,
that's exactly right.
Great catching up with you, pal. Have a great week.
Hey, you too. You too. Always fun, guys.
All right, take care. Jake Crane, Crane and Company, joining us here on the show. What sport has the best postseason? That's next. Here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere, it's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. The YouTube chat is liking the Jake Crane comments. Man, that call was so bad from Mario Cristobal. I need to see your DraftKings, man. What do you have money on right now? It was just senseless. And the fact that, he doesn't believe in taking a knee. I mean, be honest with yourselves, guys. You've played NCAA football 2023 EA Sports. It's in the game. You've played that before, right? And when there's a time to take a knee, you don't always take a knee. You don't always pick that play. Okay? And he doesn't either. So let's not act like you've taken a knee every time the game was over in NCAA football.
Yeah, the memes were incredible after that. There was the graph where the x-axis was F around and the y-axis was find out. It's like, you are here. The memes were fantastic.
Oh, that's great. That's absolutely great. So, guys, to me, the postseasons are the greatness of sports. Sticking with that word, right? It's everything that we hope for. I still do believe that the MLB postseason would be a hell of a lot bigger if it was played in the warmth of August and got the hell out of football's way like everyone else does. But I want to ask you in this segment, what sport actually has the very best postseason? Okay, what sport actually is number one on the list for postseasons? Okay, and I think, for the longest time, we didn't have a good one in college football. I think it's getting better, right? The fear with a 12-team playoff is that all that matters is going to be making the playoff or not making the playoff, right? I mean, imagine for a minute the interest level in a season at either Clemson or Florida if you already have too many losses to make a 12-team playoff. Is it just, okay, we're not going to sell a single ticket until next year? Let's batten down the hatches. I mean, because it's going to be a very clear success or failure, right? With those. The NHL playoffs have a level of unpredictability to them. The NFL, football is a sport where the better team wins the vast majority of the time, right? I mean, the NFL is very much that way. You only got to win one. I think wild card weekend, 7 teams in from every conference is absolutely fascinating. Oh, thank you, Texter. Thank you. I'll give it to you one more time, okay? NCAA football 2023 EA Sports. It's in the game. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I'll be here all week. Texter says March Madness counts. Does it count? Yes, absolutely. So I want to kind of launch this conversation and kind of grade the different sports postseasons, because I don't think necessarily there's a bad one. I think college football had the worst one. I think they've made it better, right? But is it going to come at the expense of the best regular season in all of sports, right? Is that going to be the problem? By the way, text of the day warning, Mongo says, Mark, you should not blame Clemson fans for leaving early. There's no way you can sit and smell bleep for 3.5 hours. It's just not healthy.
Pongo, Bongo, I can't remember his name.
Mongo, that's a text of the day caliber right there. Clemson fans, how do you feel about that? I mean, are you with Mongo? You don't blame the fans for leaving early? There's no way you can sit and smell bleep for 3.5 hours. It's just not healthy. Let's see here. Mark, college football is 100% copying the NFL postseason. So hands down, the NFL is the best, even though I've been more heartbroken than any fan. Go Bills. When college football playoffs go to 12 teams, it has the potential to be the best postseason. But is that going to come at the expense of the regular season, Trey? World Cup and a best style of postseason. What do you mean by that, Texter? World Cup and a best style of postseason. What does that mean? What sport has the very, very best postseason and why? That's our question to you. Should you choose to accept it? And we will be back right after this, my friends, with a top 5 at 5. Cannot wait to bring it to you right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. You guys all have a ton of choices out there. We truly do appreciate what you've done with our show, making it part of your day. And I got to tell you guys this, it was always my dream to be host of a show that was able to become part of the fabric of its community. Okay, like that was always a goal. And I felt like my career was going to pass me by without having the chance to do that. You know why? Well, I was at every spot 2 or 3 years, right? Bought my own show in Orlando, got started there, then was hired on full time. Then the owner kind of financially pulled the plug, then went to the Florida Panhandle for 2 or 3 years, had the realization that no one was ever going to discover me there. Bought my own show again in Atlanta. How can I buy my own show? Am I rich? No, I just know how to sell. So I make a commitment to buy a show, then I take a few months and I sell the show. And before I owe any station any money, I've already sold a lot of the show, right? Then I caught on with a big station in Atlanta, but was part-time. Then became full-time in Tampa Bay. Then got to work with Booger McFarland. Then got the rug pulled out from under us financially at that particular job. Caught on with another station in Tampa. Caught on with a station in Houston, right? And then came here. So it was always my dream to, I was always jealous of the guys that were like, man, do you realize how great it is to have the shot to be part of the fabric of a community there that you've built, And darn if I'm not beginning to feel that very thing right now, like the growth of the show and the engagement numbers that we see year over year are fantastic. And I don't remember if I told you guys this yesterday or not, but a couple of things happened over the weekend where, one of the, we posted that we were going to the game, Clemson, and there was a listener that I said, does anyone want to, if anyone wants to say hi, the wife and I will be there. So we agreed. We met quite a few people, but one listener, young kid, 23 years old, his name was Chip, and he said, come out and meet us behind the scoreboard. And so we did. He said, would you be so kind to come out to our tailgate with us for a few? So we did, and when we get to his tailgate tent, there's 20 plus 20-something kids in there, and you hear them say, oh my God, is that Mark Ryan? Is that Mark Ryan? And they all come running out of the tent. And I looked at my wife and I said, that's the best greeting I ever got in my life. How did, you guys hear the knocks on radio, right? Oh my gosh, the young people, how do you get young people to listen to radio? They all knew who we were. Every single one of them knew. It was amazing. And they were like, Mark, do you realize, because of the back and forth that you have with the Gamecock fans, how you are a legend in these parts? And I said, no, but it's great to hear it. Then Sunday, I was at a vineyard in not far from Asheville. Okay, so we're at a vineyard on Sunday, and we go to leave, and a guy goes, excuse me, are you Mark Ryan? And I looked at Angela and I said, what kind of world are we living in? We're at a vineyard in Asheville, okay, outside of Asheville. And this guy goes, excuse me, are you Mark Ryan? And I said, well, yes, sir, I am. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. How did you know? He goes, no, I was just telling my wife here, the whole time you were sitting down. I'm like, I listen to this guy all the time. I'm almost positive that's who it is just by your voice. And so, guys, I just, when you start to have those kind of experiences, you start to realize that, the dreams and the goals that you have that you always kind of daydreamed and fantasized about. You guys might fantasize about something else. I fantasize about this, right? It's awesome, and it's incredible. And I just am so appreciative of you guys helping us grow this thing to what it is. People always say, what can we do to help the show? You can tell a friend about us. That would be great. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. That would be great. You can support our sponsors. That would be great. That would be absolutely awesome. All right. Oh, by the way, programming reminder. I will be on CBS Sports Radio this Saturday from 5 to 10 p.m. Eastern. The Fan Upstate will be carrying that from 5 to 7. And I'll be going on for another 3 hours after that. If you care to tune into the rest of the show, you can do so on the Odyssey app, AUDACY, CBS Sports Radio. Texter says, love the show, Mark. I rush out of work to catch the top 5 at 5. You and Diesel are the best duo in the biz. With all the respect in the world, I saw a tweet of you and this wife at the game, and good Lord, did you outkick your coverage. She is gorgeous. Congrats, Mark, on all the success. I'll tell you something. I sent my family pictures from the winery in Asheville today. I sent them pictures, and they said, "Oh my gosh, Mark, like Angela looks like a movie star." And I was like, "Yo, what about your son? What am I, chopped liver?" And my mom goes, "Yeah, you pretty much are chopped liver, pretty much." And my dad said the same thing you just did, Texter, earlier today. He goes, "Mark, you outkicked your coverage, man. Good on you." Diesel, what is the definitive verdict on that? Outkicked your coverage. Is that a compliment or a diss?
Both. Both at the same time. Means she's hot, you're not.
Yeah, it is. I'm just, guys, I'm a regular dude. That's it. I'm just a regular dude. This guy says, with all due respect. Diesel, whenever you hear with the phrase, with all due respect, run. Whenever somebody says that, because I mean this in all due respect, run the opposite direction. Thank you, sir. That's very, very nice of you. I truly appreciate the kind words. And I appreciate all of you guys giving us the feeling that we have here today. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to continue to blow this thing out of the water. We're going to continue to make the show better. Diesel and I are talking about ideas all the time. Diesel made a really slick video about all the different ways you can watch our podcasts. And I posted that, right? And in many respects, we're just getting started, but it's so awesome to see the growth that we are experiencing right now across so many different platforms. So please do your part as our valued offsiders to spread the positive word of the show. And we love you guys dearly and appreciate you for that. It is time for us to do that jam. We call it the Top 5 at 5. The top 5 biggest sports stories of the day. The top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstates, Offsiders, the Top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the Top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it!
5.
At number 5. How about the Atlanta Braves last night against the Philadelphia Phillies? What a game. I was mentioning to you guys that I was watching that until about 8 or 8:30. Then I felt guilty because we didn't have my bonus son, 6-year-old Action Jackson, over the weekend. And he was upstairs. I didn't see him all weekend. So it's like I turned off the game. I go upstairs. They got on the movie Casper the Friendly Ghost. And I've got the game on my Gamecast. And I'm just sitting here like going nuts watching the little highlights that they're showing me of the game. And it felt massive. It felt like the Braves won the World Series last night. Now, it was 4-0 midway through the 5th inning. And Atlanta had a 91.6% chance to lose that game at that point. 91.6%. They scratched across a run. All right, then it goes to the 7th inning. In the 7th inning, you're still not really believing the Braves have a viable shot. What have you seen that lets you believe they're going to be able to score more than one? And then Travis d'Arnaud, inserted into the lineup in place of the struggling Sean Murphy. Great move by Snit. Stepped up to the plate and did this.
Strikeouts. That ball's hit well. d'Arnaud, deep left. Goodbye! 2-run home run. It's a 1-run game.
That made it 4-3. The next inning, Austin Riley comes to bat. There's 2 outs and 2 strikes, and the Braves are down to their final strike of the inning, which means they're probably facing an 0-2 deficit until Austin Riley had different ideas.
3-2. Here he comes. Riley in the air to left field. On the run, Marsh. There it goes. Austin Riley has given the Braves the lead in the eighth. As clutch as it gets.
I spoke to somebody in the Las Vegas sphere who told me that up until that moment, the Atlanta Braves had an 88% chance of losing the series. Now they've got a 70% chance of winning the series. And if it comes back to Atlanta, it's all she wrote. What a game. What an atmosphere. What a moment. Next up.
4.
We're asking you guys, what sport has the very, very best postseason? Okay? The Stanley Cup playoffs are so darn intense. I mean, those can't be any worse than a B. The unpredictability of it, you guys might love, but it seems to be a little bit too unpredictable for me. The NBA has the reverse problem. It's a little too predictable. I wish the series were shorter. I don't need to see all of these four games to nothing sweeps when I know damn well who the better team is. I think the NBA postseason is a B- C+, right? The Major League Baseball postseason, now they've got a problem on their hands because they've given all of these teams with the best records a bye. And the teams are coming out of the bye rusty, not rested. Rest or rust. You know, the 1 and 2 seeds right now are 2 and 6 in these first games. They're 2 and 6. They would be 1 and 7 if not for the Braves' miracle last night, these teams with a bye. But baseball brings the heat. Baseball brings the intensity. How about the NFL postseason? What letter grade would you give that? Wild card weekend in the NFL is pretty doggone awesome, right? Best postseason has got to be college basketball. But it's come at the expense of the regular season in college hoops, which don't register with an audience anymore. We know. We're on the air. The regular season in college basketball doesn't register with the audiences anymore. So what do you guys think? Best postseason in sports? I'll go March Madness 1, NFL 2, MLB 3. Next up.
3.
We ask you guys today for your Clemson midseason report card. What letter grade would you give Clemson halfway through their season? Which is exactly and precisely where we are right now. I don't know how you give them any grade other than D. I don't know how you do it. You know, the defense has been really good to great. The defense might be a B+. Well, Mark Ryan, are you saying the offense is an F then? No, I'm not. But I am going to tell you this, that if you told me that at this particular juncture, halfway through the season, Clemson would not be in the top 25, I'd say, what the hell happened? What do you mean? They're not in the top? Clemson isn't in the top 25? 6 games in? You know, well, you might say, well, Mark, they're doing all right. No, not to me. 5-1 would be all right. All right? A ranking around 13th or 14th right around now would be all right. Undefeated would be great. 5-1 would be all right. You're telling me they're not in the top 25? Remember a couple weeks ago, all you guys were yelling about the fact that LSU had 2 losses and they're in the top 25 and why aren't we? It's funny how I'm not hearing that anymore. It's funny how LSU going on the road and beating a good Missouri team takes that argument off the table when Clemson can barely beat Wake Forest at home.
Yeah, you're not ranked in the top 25 because you're not visually impressive. The eye test is showing these AP voters that you're not a top 25 team. Your record may reflect a top 25 team, and you may think that you just get it by default. No, we talked about this last year. How long does it take for the shine to really fall off of the apple? And the shine is off the Clemson apple. You know, most 4-2 teams are ranked, but you've looked terrible in the games that you've won. You've looked bad in one of the games that you lost. That's why you're not top 25.
If Clemson were to somehow go 10-2, they'll be in the top 10. Okay? Guarantee it. They'll be in the top 10. But you got to go 6-0 to get there. And that means you can't look the way you looked on Saturday. Next up.
2.
Who is the toughest team in the National Football League? Dan Campbell, head coach of the Detroit Lions, says, we'd like to nominate ourselves.
If you're just tough and you're just physical and you have no creativity, you're not going to do anything with it. You'll bang away but I think that gives you just a little bit of an edge. And look, it's a little bit. I watched San Fran last night, and it's one of the reasons San Fran I think is so. Shanahan's done an unbelievable job, but those guys are physical, tough, and man, very creative in the run and pass game.
Dan Campbell gets it. I can't believe it. Let's be honest. When he was hired and you're looking at this guy, you're like, he kind of looks like a meathead. So why does it work? Well, number one, he identifies with the players. Number two, he's got a chip on his shoulder. Detroit has a chip on their shoulder, right? Detroit is laughed at. Dan Campbell is laughed at. It fits, They are the island of misfit toys up there in Detroit, but what an island they're making it into. It's just an absolutely beautiful scene that's going on there. And Detroit might not be ready to take on San Francisco yet, but I will tell you this, they're on their way. Toughest teams in the NFL, San Francisco 1, Detroit Lions 2. And finally,
1.
All right, folks, one team season is going to be over this Saturday. Is it going to be the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, or is it going to be the Texas A&M Aggies? Now, Texas A&M has lost its last 7 true road games. Tennessee has not lost a home game since 2021. A&M goes to Tennessee. Notre Dame, we've said it a million times, you can't expect kids to get up for 3 big games in a row. They had Ohio State. They had at Duke. They had at Louisville. Now they're at home against USC with the season on the line. Caleb Williams coming into town. Does Notre Dame have the athletes to deal with that scene? If I tell you that one of those two teams is going to have their season donezo on Saturday night, who is it? Who is turning in their pink slip? Is it Notre Dame or is it Texas A&M? Which is more likely? Oof. Does Notre Dame have anything left in the tank? I'm going A&M is cooked. I think Notre Dame at home cooking, the crowd, but it's their 4th really big game in 4 weeks, And how much does A&M have left after the near miss against Alabama? I'll go Notre Dame has a better shot to keep their season alive. But what say you guys about that? And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. The MadWorldAttractions.com text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook. You can get to us on Twitter. You can get to us on YouTube. Please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. We're at The Fan Upstate on each one. And finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Mark Ryan, that is M-A-R-C Ryan, at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Coming up next, Frank Reich offers us a glimpse of what it's like to work for David Tepper. And according to me, it ain't pretty. That's next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Great job as always, streamers. Appreciate you being here. Guys, I discovered this morning that there's a deeply embedded analytic within YouTube that shows us how many of you comment every day. And just a quick go back the last 5 days, add it all up, divide by 5, and you guys are flipping fantastic. You guys are fantastic. I'm gonna throw a number at you that's gonna blow some of you away. An average of 245 comments per day on this show. 245 comments per hour for a 2-hour show. Divide that in half, do the math. We're getting a ton. We're getting a ton of messages. That's a message every half second on this show. If you think about it, 2 messages a second on this show. You guys are fantastic. That's why Mark always tells you, hey, could you please, if you got a really great sports take, could you please text it into the show to make sure that it gets read on the air? Because you guys are commenting at a rate of 2 messages per second. We can't keep up. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic problem to have. So we love you for it. We love watching this thing continue to grow and get more and more and more fun for you guys to be in here. Please invite your friends. Please get them in here. Even if they can only pop in for 10, 15 minutes and they jump in the show later on, that's fine. Just share the link out. When you see us talking about something interesting like Clemson and you got a Clemson buddy, send them a link. Or your South Carolina buddies. When we're talking about South Carolina, send them a link. That would be hugely helpful to continue to build this thing. So thank you so much.
You guys are the bestest. Diesel said it all. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you tomorrow, okay?